For me, movement is a deeply meaningful way to connect my mind and body. It helps to relieve stress, so therefore just brings a lot of joy and basically makes me feel truly present and alive.
Welcome to Move, Sweat, Discover, the podcast where fitness meets self-discovery. Today we have the delightful Nima King, founder of Mindful Wing Chun, a modern Chinese Kung Fu studio. Welcome, Nima.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for being here. In doing a little bit of research for our chat today, it seems like you've had quite a story from your beginnings, from being born in Iran to moving to Australia, and then now being in Hong Kong, opening the biggest Kung Fu studio in Hong Kong. Why don't we start from the beginning? Where did you come from? How did you get your start? Who is Nima King?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So, as you said, I was born in Iran, in the city of Shiraz, like the wine. And I was born during the in the middle of the Iran and Iraq war. And it was a few years after the Islamic Revolution. So there was quite a lot going on in terms of violence, in terms of, I remember there was, when we were playing on the streets, there was times where the sirens would go off everywhere on the street, where radio, TV, wherever. And then we'd sort of run back home, and that's when the bombings were happening. You know, we were lucky not to get bombed where we were. But there was that sort of feeling in the air. And when my father was working for a university, and he was sponsored by the university to go and do his thesis in Australia. So that was sort of our way out.
Okay.
So it was supposed to be a 4-year visa, and then we were lucky enough to be able to become refugees, let's say, in Australia, not having to go back. So I moved to Sydney when I was 9 years old. And you know, because we were on the university's payroll, let's say, my mum and dad couldn't get a job outside of what they were getting supported by the university, which was really not enough for a family of 4. I have a brother. This was before my sister was there. So we were living in poverty, you know, so it was quite tough, and there was a massive cultural shock. And let's say my brother and I were easy targets for bullies.
Okay.
You know, so naturally found myself getting into a lot of fights, trying to stand up for myself. And this is what led me to decide to learn how to defend myself. And this is how I got into martial arts.
Okay.
So I decided to, back in the day, those days there was obviously no internet, so there was the Yellow Page book. So I looked in the Yellow Pages and I found the biggest, brightest ad, and there was a colorful ad. So I was like, this business must be doing well because it was colorful and it was big. So I picked that one, and it just happened to be Wing Chun. So I didn't know that was what Bruce Lee's first martial art was. Nothing like that. It was just by luck.
And how old were you at this stage?
I was 14.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, so I got into it, and I fell in love with the philosophy, with how it was based sort of very much on physics and the science behind it, and it really, and I think at that age I was sort of still searching for who I am. My dad wasn't really around much, so I was sort of looking for a father figure as well. And the instructors of where I started were really good. Were really sort of took me in, and so it left a good impression.
Yeah.
And then I stopped for a while because I sort of left home when I was quite young. I got involved in let's say the street life, and then I came back for a couple of years, and I came back to Wing Chun, and then I just went all in, and I was practicing like literally 10 hours a day every day, because that's where I just put all my energy into. And then in 2003 I met my grandmaster, which is my master's master, my teacher's teacher, and I was just blown away by what he could do, but also the type of person that he was. Very humble, always had a smile. So my sense of what a man should be like sort of shifted, because before that I was like, got to be tough, and you got to, push through and hide your emotions and all that kind of stuff. And when I met this guy, it was extremely powerful with what he could do with his movements. But he was, again, it looks like he had his ego in check, and he was just comfortable with who he was. And that's what I got really attracted to. And I decided to to follow him. So he was doing a seminar. He was from Hong Kong, doing a seminar in Sydney. So I said, yeah, I got to learn from this guy. So
Mm.
2005, I moved over to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then here you are.
And here I am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
living out your passion
Yeah.
and yeah, kind of inspiring and motivating people to move and move well and live well.
Exactly. Yeah.
What I want to go back to your past a little bit later, but what inspires you? What motivates you?
Um, my motivation now is the fact that, because we teach young kids starting
Mm,
from 3 years old all the way up to our oldest student is 76 years old. So, a wide range. What motivates me is the change that I see in people,
mm,
be it a young child
yeah,
that hasn't, for whatever reason, maybe they don't feel safe with other adults, and who knows what kids' situations is at home. Some of
yeah,
them are parents not around, they're being raised by their domestic helpers, etc. here in Hong Kong. So whatever it is, but you can see after a while how they let their guard down and they
yeah,
start to really, come out of their shell. Or, people that could be going through marriage difficulties, it could be business difficulties, whatever,
mm,
and how, like you said, inspiring people to move and move in the right way and to get that mind body connection, to become aware, use movement as a tool to become aware of themselves,
mm,
what's going on inside,
yeah,
rather than having to look for it outside. That is really fulfilling, when you see that,
yes,
that
yeah,
positive change in people, and that's
yeah,
really what drives me at the moment,
yeah.
to keep doing what I'm doing.
It's movement is such a powerful thing. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, like you said, like you use movement to kind of like would learn about yourself and learn who you are and how you're feeling inside.
Yeah,
I think people just go to like, an exercise class, for example, just to sweat and let it out. And they don't really know why they're doing it or,
yeah,
what the benefits actually are.
yes.
What was a pivotal moment early on? You mentioned that, your kind of driver was like being bullied.
Mm,
What was the pivotal moment that, because you're 14, you're quite young. Like, how do
yeah.
you kind of go from shying away to actually, do you know what? I'm going to do something about this.
Mm,
I don't
mm.
think a lot of young people are brave enough sometimes, even.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, to get into it was definitely, I got to defend myself. I don't want to. Like, I was scared. There was a very fearful,
Yeah.
especially coming up, from where I came from, Iran, and my dad was very violent,
Okay.
um, uh, very physically abusive and things like that. So there was a lot of fear.
Mm,
There was a lot of fear growing up. So certainly I was like, okay, I got to do something about this fear. Either I'm going to just be fearful my whole life and
yeah.
sort of, turn my back and be bullied, or I can do something about it. So that was my initial, motivation to getting into it. But then when I met actually my grandmaster, I would have been 20, maybe 19, 20. When I met him, um, that's when I started to shift from my motivation going from, I got to be able to fight well and be more powerful with my
Mm,
strikes and all that, to no, 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 it's actually about facing the fear inside rather than,
mm,
trying to put more shells and to protect myself. It's
yeah.
actually, no, I got to turn back and I got to face what's inside.
Yeah.
And basically meeting him and seeing the way he is. And then see, the training the first few years was mainly just the self-defense based in Sydney,
Mm,
which is what I was looking for. And I was doing security work. I was a bouncer at the time as well, as well as teaching Kung Fu. Um, so I was doing something proactive about it, but I was still in that violence, fighting, self-defense life. That was the theme,
yeah.
Whereas after I met him, I came here, the training was, I was like, okay, so we come in here, like, like you see in the movies, old Hong Kong
Yeah.
movies. Now it's the grandmaster. There must be like
Yeah.
very cool things I'm going to learn in terms of backflips and all these powerful strikes. But when I got here, I saw everyone it was in his living room. Everyone was just standing there, and some people just standing, some people standing, moving extremely slow.
Mm,
And I was like, okay, I'll do that. After 5 minutes, I was like, well, okay, what's next? But then there was no like set thing. Okay, everyone, we're going to start, everyone do this. Everyone was just doing their own thing. And it was just standing and doing very slow movements. So I was like, it's almost like a movement meditation.
yeah.
then after the first week, I realized, wow, that's what the focus is here. And, to go through, so 6 hours a day, I was there, 5
Wow.
p.m. to 11 p.m.,
Yeah.
standing there and just going through agony because my body's not conditioned for that. I need to move, right? So it was like slow movements, knees pain, foot pain, shoulder pain. The body is transforming because you're constantly trying to release tension,
Yes.
etc.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of internal battle that I was going into. But having him next to me was the motivation to keep going. And slowly, slowly, the things that I had pushed deep down inside from
Mm.
my childhood started to surface. It's
Yeah.
very interesting, man. I'll be standing there and someone would sneeze or cough behind me, and I would get this anger, like I want to turn around and hit them. And it was just someone
Okay.
sneezing. But then and I was like, that's not, why is this happening? And I
Yeah.
realized that a lot of things were surfacing.
Mm.
And in the quiet time of moving slowly, I was having to face it and deal with it and relax and let go of it. So it was a real difficult but powerful transformation that I had to go through
Yeah.
with very slow mindful movements.
Yeah. I guess the only way is through, right?
The only way is through
Yeah.
with the right, for my experience, is through, but with the right approach, with an
Yes.
open heart.
Yeah.
Because I tried the through, and that's helpful sometimes. The David Goggins,
Mm.
Jocko Willink, like no pain, no gain. Like you
Yes.
feel
Yeah.
weak, then just jump in and do it more. Your legs are about to fall off, don't stop running. So that kind of thing, that's very helpful. And for some people, they need that.
Yeah.
But personally, for me, I was using that as for me, it was still a way to force my way through whatever the feelings were and things
Mm.
like that, rather than a level of acceptance and a level of self-love, right? It was like always like it's in my mind. I had two things. One side is like, okay, let's say the self-love, open heart. The other side is like, no, don't be weak,
Mm.
conquer that inner thing, that,
Yes. Yeah.
conquer that inner bitch, as they say, and push through it more, push through it
Yeah.
more. And as I got older and older, I realized I've got to, I've got to sprinkle some more of the self-love and some of the other stuff. So
Yeah.
yes, you got to face it. For me, you got to face it. You got to go through it, but it's not always push through. Sometimes it's acceptance that is a vulnerability,
Yeah.
that brings out the real power.
Yeah. How then did you get to that point? So you mentioned that, there was a period where you kind of fell into the wrong kind of crowd or whatever. How did you pivot out of that? What was the driving force between going
Be
forward with
very
that?
honest.
Yeah.
It was either I get out or there was a chance of getting killed.
Okay.
I got very like
So it was like
it was
no joke.
there
Like,
was no
yeah.
joke.
Right.
Yeah, like one of the fights that I was in, I was probably 17, 16,
Okay.
17.
Yeah.
And this is one of the more serious fights that I was in, but we just came out of this club. I was 16, but I was in a club. I came out of this club.
We all have.
Yes. And there was four of us, and something like 20, there was like 6 carloads, so more than 20 people. And they were going for one of the guys that I was, I guess, afterwards we heard they were after someone that I was with, one of the other three. And they just jumped us. Like it was no talk. As soon as we came out, they jumped us. And I remember, I don't remember anything. I just remember kicking off and then waking up in hospital 30 something hours later.
Oh, wow.
My friend who was younger than me, he was 15, he got stabbed 3 times and one time was in the lung, and that was it.
Right.
And I remember watching the security footage, because police showed me the security footage to see if we can identify anyone afterwards.
Yeah.
Have you seen the movie American History X?
Yes.
Yeah, where he gets the guy to open his mouth and put it on the curb. So lucky I was knocked out, but they tried to open my mouth and put it on the curb and jumped on it. So nothing else. Lucky I didn't get stabbed, but the only thing that was injured was my face. You couldn't recognize me. So these 2 front teeth are fake. They were knocked out. This guy. So they were going for the kill. And one of my other, not friends, one of the guys I was with, he saw that, and lucky he ran to the car and he had a big maglite torch and he came running back with that, and they scattered away from me. But he said at that time there was like 6 or 7 people just kicking you in the head. So, there was like sometimes there was moments like
Mm.
you're with the wrong crowd, things like that are going to happen.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where I was like, I moved back home, and I don't know, it just came to a realization of what am I doing? There was just like this awakening of what am I doing? What have I been
Mm.
doing with my body? You know, like not sleeping for days and just
Mm.
breaking my fast, not eating, breaking my fast with like a Whopper with a Burger King. You know, it was just like crazy life.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a period where I didn't know what month it was. It was just
Mm.
mayhem, you know, in terms of just everyday life. And, you know, one thing that I think got me through it in hindsight is my mother's love.
Okay.
So my mother's had a very tough life, very, very, very tough life since the time she met my dad. um, and, but she was tough. She was a physics and mathematics teacher. So when she was teaching us math,
Mm.
it was like, you know, a slipper in one hand or a belt in one hand. And like, you know, so she was like that. And that's how the culture was
Yeah.
back in those days. But there was that love there, you know? So I think that if I didn't have that, I probably wouldn't wake up and like, let's say all the fights that I had, I can honestly say there was always opportunity to really, really, really hurt someone
Mm.
or worse. But I always had this thing in me that I always held back. If someone was on the floor in a situation where you can really hurt them, I never, even if I had to act like I'm doing something, it was just an act and I never put force, you know? So there's always this thing in me that I'm like, I can't really do what other people did to me
Yeah.
or did to my, you know? So, and I put that down to my mother's love,
Mm.
you know? So perhaps it's like, what was a turning point or what made me wake up? Probably because I experienced love. And this is another thing, you know, again, you know, in Hong Kong, there's a lot of the underprivileged people,
Yeah.
you know, there is a lot of refugees and that. And I was on that side and what if my mum wasn't like that? What if my mum wasn't around? What if my mum just left and I was just stuck with that crazy
Mm.
dad? What kind of person would I be like, you know? So, you know, I have a lot of compassion for even people that are doing crazy stuff. It's like you never know what someone's been through.
No.
So to be in a position, people like us that can use movement, that can use our craft to just use it as an in to let people move, put their guard down, bring some mindfulness into their life, and
Mm.
then create a community like we were talking about so
Yeah.
that they can feel safe and comfortable to speak a little bit. And
Yeah.
then suddenly, you know, this person's been, well, this person's been through that. And then, you know, we can, because maybe some people don't have that outlet,
Yeah.
you know? So again, going back to what motivates me
Mm.
to keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Your experiences that you've just talked about and part of Wing Chun being like sparring and like fighting,
Yeah,
can I say?
self-defense. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, is there an element where you're like putting the two together? Do you know what I mean? Like in a sense that's like like your past trauma comes
Mm,
up because
mm,
you're kind of in that kind of not frame of mind, but
mm.
maybe there might be some triggers.
Yeah, certainly. If it's that's why, um, you know, having my own place and training with my good friends, people that I trust, um, with the students, I can control and manage that. But
Mm.
I'd be lying if I sat here and say, yeah, through my practice, I'm now a saint and anger
Then
doesn't
kind of
come
like, yeah,
up.
yeah.
So in the beginning, there was a lot. You spar with other people from other schools or other styles, and
Mm.
you know, you agree to go to a certain level, and then they go a bit above that.
Yeah.
Naturally, that sort of kicks off in me, you know. But as we were discussing before in the stuff that we did before the podcast, one thing that one of the Wing Chun philosophies is to first of all be anchored in your own being, your own mind, your own body, have that mind body balance,
Yeah.
and to try to be anchored in that and not fall for the external thing that's feeding you. Like whether it's you're in contact, you don't resist the contact point.
Mm.
You don't lose yourself at what's going on out there. And that sort of gives me, and that's why you asked, you said, how do you keep this kind of relaxation, this biomechanical control when in the heat of the moment?
Mm.
And the answer was, well, that's the practice. The practice is to, just like you go to a meditation retreat, 10-day meditation retreat, no phones, nothing. So of course you can have amazing levels of relaxation and insight.
Mm.
But can you keep that level of whatever it is, control, love, whatever, when you're in the MTR, when you're in a busy train and someone shoulder charges you?
Yeah.
What's your first reaction? But that's when it matters. That's when the real
Sure, yeah.
practice matters, right? So to answer your question, yeah, it's tough. It's tough to control, those little impulses coming, but the practice literally is geared towards self-control, mindfulness. So that is a good tool.
Yeah.
And I think it's good with control, like we were discussing, with control in a safe environment, to put yourself in situations where those old demons, let's say, come back, and then you can face them and you can deal with them, in a safe environment.
Mm. You talk a lot about mindfulness in your practice.
Yeah.
Was there a kind of turning point where you really kind of adopted that mindfulness?
Yeah, I think coming to Hong Kong and actually being, so with movement, as we were discussing, there's like, okay, you can do sprinting, you can do dance, you can do rhythmic movement, really fast-paced stuff, but then you can also do very slow stuff, very slow, almost meditative movements. So when I came to Hong Kong, it was more that there was a lot of stillness practice, standing meditation with very, very slow movements. And I think that was the first time that in my life that I had to actually, I couldn't escape with just moving fast and I had to just let everything be still, so that the demons that I was trying to hide, or the fear, or whatever you want to call it, that I was trying to push down deep and sort of, that's why a lot of people take drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. We're just trying to suppress what we feel. You just want to look the other way, right? And in some ways, with the sparring and lots of sweating, of course, you're releasing endorphins and you're getting movement, you're becoming fit. But in some ways, that was my way of looking away at what was inside.
Yeah.
But when you're standing there and there's nothing going on, there's no external forces there's no one you can blame, and you're just standing there moving slowly and aware, then there's no running away from it.
Sure.
So I think it was the slower, mindful, standing meditation type movements that Wing Chun has that forced me to sort of shift gears a little bit and see the value in those kind of practices, as well as the fast stuff. You can't just have one or the other. For me, I think some people just do that. Okay, and that's fine. I'm just going to sit and meditate. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I think if they don't treat their body like a temple and then become very obese and just because I don't care about the body, I just care about the mind. My understanding and from my experiences, I think both is very important.
Yeah.
I was just missing one.
Let's break it down actually a little bit more. What is mindfulness to you and how do you practice it?
Okay. So the way that I practice the mindfulness is I got, as I said, through the practice that I started when I first came to Hong Kong, I got an insight into the workings of the mind. Of something arises and I immediately
like a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah. This shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be feeling this.
Yeah.
Or I just jump on the boat, on that train of thought, and I realize 15 minutes have gone and I've just been on the train of thought that I wasn't in control of.
Got it, yeah.
So that's one aspect, to be able to, with the stillness practice, to be able to feel the monkey mind, as they call it, to be able to feel that and just to realize it, there is a sense of detachment.
Yeah.
The other aspect is the mind-body connection, which we discussed prior to this, that to be able to actually feel the body and not just feel it, not just feel the sensations. If we say, okay, whoever's watching this, do you feel tingling in your fingers? Everyone within seconds, they can go, oh yeah, I can. Previously, I didn't. As soon as I become aware of it, I can. So I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about, like I demonstrated to you, that the actual musculoskeletal control that you can have in your body using the mind. That's maybe for another podcast when we can move around a little bit, but to really be able to get a tangible control over your muscular system, over your fascia, over your joints. To be able to do that, you can't be thinking about your to-do list and be able to get that deep level of control in your body. So it's the mind-body connection that through this practice I gained. And walking around, if I put my mind in my body and control it in the way that I'm saying,
Mm.
then as I'm walking around going about my day, in the beginning, it was like, because it was a new thing when I first came. If it's funny, like we'd be standing at a barbecue, me and the guys I was training with, and we're all like, we're thinking about our spine and trying to, it was so forced and like,
Yeah.
so, whereas now, as I'm talking to you, I can be feeling my spine. I can be relaxing my shoulders. I can be feeling my balance. I can feel the gravity's pull on me. I can,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it becomes more like what we discussed, like in the beginning, you drive a manual car, you have to think, okay, put in the clutch, turn this, look, check the mirror. And it's so hectic.
Yeah.
Later on, people drive, they text, don't text if you're driving, but they text, they have a conversation, listen to music,
Yeah.
and it's almost happening on autopilot. So it's like, in the beginning was so it's a conscious trained thing, and then it sort of becomes subconscious, and so that's where I'm at now with I've got a tool where I can quickly check in
Yeah.
if my mind is running. I can quickly check in, feel my body, get that access,
Mm.
and it gives me a bit of a leeway not to get stuck in the train of thoughts.
So it's almost like an internal power.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
certainly, and I think yeah, and that for me it's very interesting now to be able to empower um, children, kids at a
Mm.
very young age. It's not easy to ask a 4 or 5-year-old to sit still, let alone
Sure.
make them to feel their shoulder. You say, relax your shoulder, and they do something with their face. You're like,
Yeah.
that's not your shoulder, and
Yeah.
slowly. And by the time these kids, the ones that do stay, they're 7, 8 years old, and their parents are like, their posture's better. They're better at school. They're nose breathing.
Mm.
We just mentioned nose breathing, but naturally they're in a state where they're not like that. So their whole entire system operates better because of the little cues, because you're constantly in a fun way getting them to be in their bodies and not be here. You'd be amazed, especially we were discussing this um, before you and I about the effects that COVID had on kids,
Mm.
being stuck for 2 years, no socializing during the developmental, very important stages. And now we're seeing the adverse effects that's having on kids. And now with AI, they're constantly on their phones. And
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy times that we're living in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hence, the more importance we should put into what we're doing, empowering people through movement, and also being through mindful movement and how they're feeling, so in our classes, I'm talking mainly of the kids classes, but we have this sections called the Kung Fu philosophy sections, where we sit down for 6 minutes, 7 minutes, and we have a theme. Okay, so bullying, or
Okay.
discussing bullying, discussing dealing with emotions. Is it wrong to be angry?
Yeah.
Majority of the kids are like, yes. We're like, no, it's not. Anger is an emotion, but then that gives us an in to to discuss that. Who here can share who got angry or frustrated at their parents last week, and then they start sharing. There was one time in one of the classes, it was like maybe 20 kids. I remember it clearly. It was a Sunday class, and Sundays where all the parents are there because they're
Yeah.
not working. Domestic helpers are off, so all the parents were there. So it was a full, like 40 people in the room. And there was a kid. His name is Sam, lovely kid, and I think it's 4 or 5 at the time. And we were talking about bullying, and he goes, "Yeah, I actually get bullied. There's these 3 kids, and the parents looked. No, they were on the phone. Oh, my kid's talking about." So they didn't know.
Yeah.
So he talked about it, and they got to address it, and it's all good now. But I felt really good because it's like, oh wow, we created a situation where a 5-year-old kid felt comfortable in front of everyone
Mm.
to talk about the fact that they're getting bullied,
Yeah.
to talk about emotional problems that they're having and stuff
Mm.
like that. So it's quite a powerful thing, I think. I'm very interested to see what we can do, what seeds we can sort of plant
Yeah.
to see what happens. And hopefully they'll be able to navigate the life a little bit better than, let's say, I did until I found
Yeah.
something in my 20s
Yeah.
later on with the
Yeah.
internal practice. So.
Did you do that with adults as well?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
In a not with the Kung Fu philosophy way, but with the adults, the relationship we have with them is, I think there's a lot of power, as I said, with vulnerability.
Yes.
With being, especially as, I mean, male and female now, but especially as men to go, I am fearful. I was fearful. I did have I had an argument with my spouse or with my partner, and I cried. I just needed a good cry for 10 minutes. For me to say that, like,
Mm.
15, 20 years ago, but like, nah. And I wouldn't even cry.
Yeah.
If I felt like crying, I wouldn't even cry, because a man shouldn't cry, So I had that kind of thing. So I think to have that kind of openness people naturally let their guard down. They're like, no, it is safe for me. There's an energetic thing, even if you don't say it.
Yeah.
There's something that people feel. And then you come, okay, so let's say it's a private lesson. How was your day? Usually it's the standard, yeah, all right. And then let's get on with the practice, you know? But then after they get to know you, how was your day? They're like, yeah, you know, and then they start opening up.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've gone through classes where the private lesson, it's been 40 minutes of therapy, and not that I'm a therapist, but I'm just listening and they're sharing.
Yeah.
And then that's all they needed. You
Yeah.
know, and that's a much more better release than me asking them to stand there and open up their spine and relax their shoulders, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that sense of trust in the community, which can only be genuinely developed if the people that are putting the community together themselves are very open about the reality of human nature and life and what we're going through, and not try to hide it, not try to go, no, I've mastered it all. I think that's what's very needed in this day and age.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as human beings, all we want really is to feel seen and heard. And
Sure.
so for, like people like us who are practitioners, it's just kind of sometimes it's just about giving people that space to say whatever they need to say and do whatever they need to kind of do.
Absolutely.
Effectively.
Yeah.
Talk to me more about vulnerability.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. So I think, so for me, my dad was, as I said, quite violent towards me, towards my mom. So I just saw violence growing up, and then that turned into anger. So to hide the fear, I would just, I mean, I'm very embarrassed and not proud to say this, but I was one of those people that if there was someone looking at me on the street and they were giving me the evil stare, I would be doing it back to a point where I'd be like, no, I'm not going to look away. And if it's going to be a fight, let's fight. Like that kind of thing. But that was all stemmed from, I have to hold my ground. Otherwise I'm going to get hurt.
Yeah.
My dad was, he ended up murdering my sister and committed suicide. Okay. So this was the finale to give you an idea of how hectic it was.
Okay.
And this was when I was in Hong Kong. And my sister was 13 at the time, and my mum and brother walked in, saw her on the floor. She was purple. And then my brother thought it's like a thief that's come in, and went into the laundry room, saw him hanging. So that was his finale, because my mum was finally filing for divorce.
Right. After
After all these years of abuse, she finally was going to, and that would have been great for my sister, for my brother, for my mum. I was already here. So for me to even be able to talk about this, I only started talking about this side of my life 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And happened to be on another podcast. And as I said, like I just felt comfortable to do it. And then since then there was only my very close people knew, my wife knew about this, but it's not something that it's a sort of a conversation killer, right? You're not going to be like bringing that up and like, okay, so do you have any siblings? I say, I have a brother. And you used to have a sister. Even that is a comment. People like want to know more,
Yeah.
So I was hit it. But the release that I felt the first time I shared it, and then to go, okay, yes, I went through that, but to be able to talk about it and go, yeah, it really sucked. It was tough. Life was really tough. But then to be on the other side and to go, look, there is. If I was sitting on that chair, I'm sure you would have. Everyone's got their own stories.
Sure.
No one's had a perfect life. And not to say that my one was more hectic than yours. No, everyone internalizes it in different ways. So to understand that is just what life is.
Yeah.
There is going to be suffering.
Yeah.
And not to hide it, not to put this mask and which I did my entire life.
But I know you said that you, at that time, at the other podcast, you felt like comfortable. There was, there was safe space with the host. But what was there more in you that was kind of wanting to share?
Had
you thought about it before, talking about it like in a more general space?
No, and I'd never talked about it in a room. Like if we were in a room more than 3 or 4 people, if I didn't know 1 or 2, I just wouldn't talk about it. There's just nothing, But I think So that's an interesting point you brought up. I think going through it, and as I said, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a saint and Wing
Sure.
Chun
Yeah,
made me
when
enlightened,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But that certainly gave me a tool to be able to not even deal with it, to manage it and respond to it, internalize it in a, you know. So I think perhaps in that podcast, I think maybe I'm getting to it now, being a father of two as well, and I'm seeing the innocence of my kids. And don't get me wrong, you know, especially with my son, I get moments where I just snap,
Mm,
right? And then I have this self condemnation of, oh, you don't want to be like your dad. I've never hit them, you
yeah.
know. I don't, you know, because having gone through what I did, I don't believe in hitting them. I think there's other ways, but um,
But we learn from our parents.
we learn from our parents.
Yeah.
But what I want, especially with my son, is to be able to break that. Because my old
Sure.
man,
Yeah.
my dad, I never met his dad, but his dad used to work for the king before the Islamic Revolution. The
Okay.
king, the last king of Iran, Persia, or Iran, if you want to call it. And he was very high up in the military. So I heard stories from my mum later on as well that he had a very, very probably, well, until he did what he did at the end, but probably he had it worse than what he did to us in terms of
Mm,
the violence, just
okay.
random beating because his dad was in a bad mood and he would just nearly kill them with a beating, and then that's it, just go about his day. So it's something that was passed down. Maybe his dad was even worse.
Yeah.
We just don't know. So
Yeah.
for me, my role is that I've got to break that
Yeah.
for my son, right? Or at least lessen it to an amount, or at least give him the life skills that what we're discussing here, the vulnerabilities, because that stuff was never said
Yeah.
in my house. Even if I
Oh,
cried, my dad would like, "What's wrong with you? Why crying? Stop
yeah.
crying. You shouldn't cry." Um, so perhaps to get back to your question, perhaps because I've gone through it and now I'm in a position where I can help people, because you know you go through some suffering, you get to appreciate
Yeah.
and have some kind of empathy, compassion that there is such thing as suffering in everyone's life.
Mm,
Perhaps I felt empowered to share it, and to go, I'm still here. I'm still kicking on. I've got a good family. I've got a wife that I love and loves me. I'm in a happy marriage. I've got good kids. I'm in a good community. I've
yeah.
got people that really care about me and I care about them in my life. Even though I went through what I went through,
Mm,
I'm still here and I'm still, you know, doing okay. And now I'm in a position to be able to help people.
yeah.
So I guess maybe that I felt that telling my story was, or that part of my story, it was quite empowering, maybe inspirational for some people to go, yeah, that's a pretty shit life you've been through, but you didn't become an alcoholic
Yeah.
or continue that life that I briefly continued or did when I was a teenager. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. Yeah.
thank you for listening.
I guess an important part of that piece, an important part of your journey is that mindfulness and kind of leaning on that and the vulnerability.
Yeah.
How much of that do you feel like you have learned or picked up, or, you know, is it something you've had to just, I don't know, like,
Just pick up along the way.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think both. I think Wing Chun was my first, a type of Wing Chun that I practice was the first sort of, let's say the first step towards that.
Mm,
But then again, as I said before, like my mother's love, to experience
mm,
moments of like, I'm sick, and then she really the care, putting, you know, checking for the fever. I still remember, you know, as
mm,
kids, you know, the mother's love is something, the parents' love is something very special. But I had that from my mom, so perhaps that already left a seed that made me tap into a good feeling inside. But in terms of the actual practice, Wing Chun was the first one. I did Vipassana. I did a lot of Buddhist meditation. I still do sitting meditation. But talking to people and observing, hearing their stories
mm,
and just life experience. But life experience, not just sitting down and going, life sucks. Let's talk about how much it sucks, and we're all doomed. And you know, why is there suffering? And not not in that tone, but just go, yeah, this is our story. But to learn from your experience, you know,
yeah.
and to learn to watch, to listen to podcasts, to read books, people's experiences. But I think I personally feel without the self practice, without the actual, whether it's a seated meditation, whether it's a proper type of yoga or Tai Chi or Wing Chun or whatever it is with it, like to actually sit with yourself
Yes.
and internalize things and just watch what's happening. I think that's a very important aspect. Just to read books and conceptualize it can take you, from experience, can take you quite far, but not really get to
Mm.
the roots of the matter of
Yeah.
the suffering. So I
Yeah.
think both. I think the practice, but also just life, just being on the lookout for it.
Yeah.
You know, these
Yeah.
day and age, algorithms feed you what you keep looking at, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I try
Yeah.
to, and my friends sometimes send me the stupidest stuff. Sometimes I'm like, oh, and I'll watch it, and I'm like, oh man, now it's going to feed me 10 of those stupid things, right? So
Yeah.
I try to, even on, I don't try to, try to stay off social media as much as I can, but it's hard to do that. Like, I mean, stay off it in terms of not be scrolling up for 2 hours. That's what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah.
But I try to listen or follow stuff that's constantly feeding my mind rather than the other way around, rather than
Mm.
just pointless stuff that's just keeping me on there just to keep me on there,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So I think, you know, we can set our intention to life of, okay, I'm going to, whatever shit is it that I'm going through, unhappiness, whatever it is, people could be suicidal, whatever it is. All right, set the intention to, I'm going to do something about this. I still have the power in me, no matter how
Mm.
bad it feels, how much I want to end it. I do have the power in me to make the changes, set that intention, have the faith on that intention, and then live your life. Have the groups that you're hanging out. If you always hang around with the same people that are like, yeah, life is shit, let's go for a beer. That's not the most,
Mm.
you know, or if you're watching the stuff that's not really feeding you, it's not going to be in the most, you know, conducive
No.
environment to
No.
grow. So
Yeah.
I think take responsibility
Yeah.
for it to get out of whatever you're in.
Sure. I think that's why sharing and leaning into that vulnerability is super important. I think, well, we talked off mic, and I was telling you the story of how I kind of got this podcast started, and
Yeah.
I was like, it scared the shit out of me, but I was like, I'm going to do it because, you know, it's scary, and that's the way that we grow, right?
Yes.
As someone that's kind of like in the, you know, the space to kind of guide people, when you come across somebody that is stuck or is questioning, or, you know, they can't push through to, you know, whatever movement pattern, or, you know, if there's a blockage,
Mm.
how do you kind of guide them? What is your advice to them?
I think it's very much, from my experiences, very much depends on the person. I think if you're asking me as a teacher, my answer would be, let me see give me some time with the person, and then I will know how to approach it. It's very interesting. Some people, you know, I was talking about the David Goggins way of pushing through.
Yeah.
That can be very powerful at some point in someone's life. They may need that, like, man, just do it. Like, no, just do it. You know, like, you're accountable to, okay, make sure after you do it, come and tell me,
Yeah.
you know, that you've done it. Some people maybe need that push. But then, you know, on the other side, if you do that to someone that doesn't need that, needs the other way of just be a presence, that be a sort of a, be a presence that it can go, it's all right, it's okay. You know, you've tried and it hasn't worked. It's all right. Just, you're showing up, aren't you? You're
Yeah.
trying, aren't you? Pat yourself on the back for that. It's okay. You know, so to have that, you know, so I use, usually it's the latter. Usually it's the empathy. Usually it's like, no, it's okay. Because that's very empowering to go, it's fine. We're living in a society that's like, go. I got to run. I got to go from this to that. I haven't. And then you watch someone on Instagram or something else and it's like, wow, their life is so much better than mine. And then you're stuck, you know, so we're in a thing of go, which is time and a place for that. But from personal experience and, you know, watching people that I work with, sometimes it's a bit too much of that. You know, I had, for example, during COVID, a student, I won't name the name, but I had a student, that lovely guy, one of the loveliest people that I've had the pleasure of sharing with, and always a smile, always would come in, and he was the owner of a big hedge fund, and, you know, just a very successful person, what you would call successful. And then COVID happened, and, you know, so, are you sure I can't come to training? Like, we didn't know that we could train. This is the first few months of COVID. We didn't know if you could train with people. Long story short, he ended up taking his own life, and it was completely out of surprise. Like, wow, he's always smiling, he's always respectful, he had everything going for him, but obviously not. And he was living that go, 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 go life. And what you would call what a lot of people would call success in terms of bank account figures, in terms of a lot of face, the family had a lot of face in terms of the name and all of that. But then why did he end it? I don't know. I wish I could rewind time and actually start to, chat and see what was going on inside him. So it's not always about go, 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 go. So to answer your question, I think my way now has been self-love. Just, it's okay as long as you show up. Like, you show up in your own way. You try the movement. You said, what if they can't, they get stuck? Just keep showing up. Keep showing up, but keep showing up with less self-condemnation. Give yourself credit for showing up, because a lot of people don't show up. They'd rather say no, make excuses, reach for that bottle of alcohol or whatever it is, or reach for that phone and keep scrolling. The fact that they're showing up, they're in front of you, reward that with saying, well done.
Yeah.
Pat yourself on the back. Just keep doing it. The practice is the showing up, not the practice is the result. I think they say, what is the saying? They say the journey is the reward.
Yeah.
Right. And I think there's a lot of truth to that in those instances where someone's stuck.
Yeah. I don't think people give themselves very much credit a lot of times. It's all like that self-doubt and the back chat, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which stems from possibly the parents.
Yeah.
You can do more. That's not enough. This so-and-so, your friend so-and-so studying so much more than you. And I'm saying this as a parent that still does what I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And I'll catch myself and I'm like, no. And then, so as a parent, one thing I can share, let's say as a parent, or even as a teacher, or even as a friend, that you have moments like that where you realize that you're actually doing the opposite to what we're talking about, and you're programming the person, saying that's not enough, that's not good enough, and da. If you catch yourself as a parent, what I do is like, oh damn, I did it again, and then I'll wait. Okay, I'm calm, and then I, call them and hey, can I have a chat? And then for 5 minutes, you know how much I love you, right? I did that, and I lost my temper. I'm not perfect as well. I lose my temper, so suddenly my, let's say, son that sees me as now he's 10, so still the alpha male thing hasn't kicked in where he's challenging me too much. So he still sees me, that dad's the most powerful sort of figure in his mind, right? But for me to show vulnerability and say, oh, sorry, I made a mistake. And no, I appreciate the effort you've put in and things like that. That even though I messed it up, but to come clean and that has a lot of power.
Yeah.
That is it's a learning moment.
Accountability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which is much more important than the result I want him to get, which is to study more or not do this or not do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about movement. So we know that you Wing Chun.
Yeah.
Are there other types of movement that you've kind of done over the years and dipped in and out of, or?
Yeah. So I dipped in and out of yoga.
Okay.
Pilates for a while. So body control Pilates. I'm actually a certified body control Pilates instructor from UK. We have people come here and train us. I do a lot of, I lift weights here and there.
Yeah.
With my good friend Andrew Cox, which I think you should definitely have on this podcast. So I dabble and I try to actually, just now Brian was on your podcast before your past guest. I was just with Brian before I came here, and he asked, he said, okay, so your master or your teacher has passed away in 2014. Is there anyone else that you're learning from? I said, no, so what I have in Wing Chun in terms of improving my own Wing Chun in that system, I have enough. It's just about refining and training more and teaching it. But I said, I'm learning from everywhere and everyone. So I might dabble from here and go, oh, hold on, the pattern in this made me move in a more rhythmic way, that how can I apply that kind of rhythmic understanding or philosophy to my Wing Chun when I teach it. So I think it's very important to go that there's not one way is the way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
So yeah, certainly I'm open to, I just love movement. I just love movement. I just love the mind-body connection.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm at my happiest when I'm moving, even if it's something that I haven't done or I'm uncomfortable doing. I'm just like, yes.
Yeah.
The body is an amazing thing.
Yes.
And like I was saying, movement is such a powerful tool.
Yeah.
What have you learned about yourself through movement over the years?
What have I learned about myself through movement? So apart from the stuff that I shared with the slow movements, the mind body connection,
Yeah.
um, I think well, to appreciate, I've been pondering a lot recently, or in my observations, in my meditations and things, the impermanence of stuff, right?
Mhm.
Looking at my mother now, she's still quite young. She's late 60s, which is still considered
Yeah.
young, but she had such a tough life and no movement, no proper movement,
Mm.
where I can now witness in her, her core is so weak, and it's like, let's say the amount of stuff that, so she can't sit on the floor. If she sits on the floor, she can't get back up because her
Okay.
knees, her back and stuff,
Mm.
where you get an 80 or 90-year-old that's doing headstands and
Yeah.
handstands, so the contrast. But for her throughout the years, she just, the stuff that she told herself that she could do and therefore she would do, the circle started to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Oh, now I can't kneel. Now I can't do this. Got to a point where now she can still survive on her own. She can reach for stuff. She can walk,
Mm.
go upstairs slowly, come down very slowly. But, noticing that what we have now, us in the room now, we can move. We have
Mm.
the gift of being able to sit
Yeah.
without much pain,
Yeah.
go for a walk, do a handstand, do a bit of punching,
I don't know
kicking,
about
whatever it is,
that.
all that kind of stuff. Well, be able to at least operate
Yes.
and
Yeah.
to not have to go, no, I can't go up there. Because seriously, for my mom, it's like she couldn't experience a nice hiking experience. I couldn't
Right.
take her to Dragon's Back because she can't.
Yeah.
To miss out on that. Um, so the appreciation of the fact that I can move
Yeah.
quite painlessly, and the fact that I know that one day that's impermanent, one day I'll be losing that,
Yeah.
makes me really appreciate we were talking, you said you're your happiest when you're moving. I
Mm.
could be going for a walk
Mm.
on a boring treadmill, but the fact that I'm feeling where I'm striking my foot on the floor and that wave of force that comes through my body and how my
Yeah.
arms move and through my spine, that is such a pleasurable thing.
Mhm.
That, let's say a very good friend of mine, unfortunately has Parkinson's, and he's talking to him, it's like he's losing that. Like every time I talk to him, he's like, okay, now this has started shaking now, and it just makes me appreciate of what I have right now. And so every movement that we have right now, we have to appreciate.
Yeah.
So that's what movements taught me. Movements taught me appreciation for life,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And so we just did a little session, a little.
Wing Chun
I did
session.
an intro
Little
session
intro, yeah.
to Wing Chun. Whenever you teach and whenever you move, and maybe in particular our session, what did you learn about you in our session?
Mm.
Yeah.
To be, so less the way I move, but more the way I observe how you're moving,
Mm.
how you're holding your body and how you're moving.
Yeah.
What I continue learning, because if you think about it, every human being is the way I can look at it, if I'm trying to pass on or share this particular method of movement that is Wing Chun, everyone is a puzzle. It's like
Yeah.
everyone, if I say relax your shoulders, some people might do it like that. Some people might think about it and nothing happens. Or some people might actually have that access to relax a little bit, the
Mm.
first couple of layers, and then you help them go deeper. So, and some people might keep nodding. A lot of people, like, I'm like, okay, so I might be manipulating their spine, touching their spine to facilitate release. I say, okay, feel here, breathe into here, release. And they're all like, they want to be polite, they're nodding, but they're not actually even trying, or from what I feel, they're not even able to feel where I'm touching,
Yeah.
So how I would approach that person will be very different to how I would approach someone like yourself, which
Mm.
obviously, because of the mind-body connection you do have from this other stuff that you do, within minutes, when I was like, I showed you what we want to do, and within minutes you went from being not very stable to, oh, you want me to be stable but relaxed. You could produce some level of that.
Yeah.
If I have a 5-year-old that's not embodied very well, that's not really athletic, it's very hard to get what you got in seconds or minutes.
Mm.
It might take them months, right? So what I'm learning in terms of movement, my own movement patterns, but more when I'm teaching the other person, is constant trial and error. Like I say something, how did they react? And I'm looking at the person as a system, as mind, body, emotional.
Mm.
Did I say something to trigger?
Yeah.
Like say, oh, so just did you notice how you couldn't relax your shoulder? Couldn't relax your shoulder, and they start. Either something happens to their face. Oh, I shouldn't say that. They can't do something. That triggered them.
Yeah.
So so to be aware of that. So it's constantly there's a constant solving a puzzle,
Yes.
and that I think makes me a better. It allows me to connect to people better.
Okay. What I was going to say that I learned about you in our session was that you are a natural born connector.
Oh, okay,
And
great.
so I'm glad that good segue there.
Yeah.
And that you are hyper aware of, like, I know, I was the only person in the room, but you're hyper aware of like everything that was going on, and you like talked and moved with purpose. Yeah.
Great.
I feel like
Excellent.
that's probably a fair assessment.
Yeah.
In life as well.
Yes.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a thing, like we were talking about, to take these philosophies of the self practice
Yes.
and also the interaction, the connection with others, to take that philosophy and apply it to life, apply it to every relationship. Because what else is there, man? There's like, I mean, what is there to life? Like if it's not just about, again, I don't want to sound like I'm sitting here and every interaction
Sure.
I have is I'm
Yeah.
a saint, but
Yeah.
but this is, I'm talking to myself here as well as a self reminder. What else is there than making the person that you come in the people that you come in contact with feel a little bit better?
Yeah.
Everyone's going through their shit. So are you going to be a force that adds to that
Yeah.
weight on their shoulders, or can you release a little bit? I mean, if you can release a little bit and you sense that, even if it's not verbalized, but you
Yeah.
sort of sense that because there's a connection, you get a bit of a release. And then suddenly
Yes.
there's like, there's a live connection, which is
Yeah.
more than just
Yeah.
a Facebook comment.
Yeah.
It's not real,
Mhm. Yeah.
So certainly I think through movement, like we discussed, through creating the right kind of community, we can be, if there is a, like Star Wars, the light and the dark, we can be that on the side of the light for
Sure.
life,
Yeah,
rather
yeah.
than
Yeah.
not doing anything, or rather than adding to the problems of the
Yeah.
world.
I felt like mostly that like you were connected to yourself though.
That's very important. I think if we
Yeah.
don't have the anchoring to ourselves,
Yeah. Then you can't connect with others.
we can't. We're going to be
Yeah.
pulled by life. And this is
Yeah.
what, again, this is one of the first things that I was trying to pass with Wing Chun.
Yeah.
You need to be centered. You need to have ownership of your own body, your own mind, your own being, before you can influence or help or, others. That's a must. A lot of people maybe read a book and they're like, oh, I can teach this.
Yeah.
And then, but if they're not centered inside, they get dragged. And then a lot of people, like, you do a lot of hands-on with the body work that you do. Don't you feel, if people always coming with problems, don't you feel that heaviness on you? Like you take on their negative energy? And I'm like, honestly, I don't. I feel like if my guard is down that day and I'm stuck in my own thoughts, then the interaction is just a fake surface. How's it going? Yeah, good. Okay, let's get with the lesson. And and that rarely happens because I don't feel like that's real if I do that. But I've experienced moments like that, called classes like that, and I feel only if I'm not aware and present myself, do I allow their own negativity to come inside. Otherwise, it doesn't affect me, and it's more a cleansing overall.
Are you an empath?
Empath, what's that?
Like empathy?
Oh, empathy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say
Am I
that you are?
empathetic?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I would say
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm certainly.
That was just a little side curious question.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna wrap up here,
Sure.
but before we go, we have a lightning go-to round. So it's just 10 quick, easy questions. Don't think too much.
Okay.
It all begins with what's your go-to sweat? As if I need to ask.
What's my go-to sweat?
Yeah.
Okay. So my go-to exercise that makes me sweat.
Well, just your go-to workout.
Okay.
Yeah.
Martial arts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your go-to treat meal?
Very good salad.
Very good.
Yeah, because you can have bad
What makes
salads.
a very good salad?
Organic, fresh, colorful. The tastes are there,
Okay.
juicy. A little bit of fruit inside. as well.
Okay, what
Yeah.
kind of fruit? That
Mango salad is our
Oh,
family favorite.
okay,
Yeah, my son,
okay,
my daughter, we haven't got her into it yet, but my son, me, my wife,
okay.
yeah, mango salad.
Yeah, so all the colors of the rainbow in this bowl. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
you are my spirit animal.
Yes.
um, go to life motto, like mantra.
Um, be a good force in life. Be a
Mm,
positive force in life. Be of
okay,
service.
nice. Go to stress reliever.
Wing Chun, meditation. Yeah,
Yeah. Go to travel destination.
Thailand.
Where in Thailand?
um, any
Anywhere.
any of the beaches, but recently I've been going because I teach in Chiang Mai. So Chiang Mai's had really good
Okay.
effects on me. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
what I do an annual sort of, it's called a Marshall camp. So I do an annual
Okay.
retreat down one of the teachers there, and every year is just like 4 or 5 days of just,
Yeah.
yeah, deep practice, sharing,
Mm.
lots of good food. I
Oh,
love
the
Thai
food.
food.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
my favorite.
yeah.
I've been watching the new White Lotus recently, and it's
Yeah.
based in Thailand. So
Yes. Yeah.
I haven't been in a little while, so it's giving me the itch to go.
Yeah.
Go to morning or evening routine.
Evening routine, I have both, but evening routine is listening to um, motivating podcasts
Mm,
or audiobooks.
yeah.
I'm listening to a Thich Nhat Hanh book right now. It's really, really good. While I'm on the yoga mat and I'm just moving a little bit and
Okay.
breathing, or I've got the tennis ball on the wall and I'm doing self massage or something. So that's
Yeah.
like my last half an hour before I go to bed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that. Go to self-care ritual.
Sauna, cold plunge,
Mm,
massages. I do one massage a week.
okay.
If I had to choose one, massage.
Okay. And are you like an oil kind of guy? Are you like the standing on the back, cracking your back kind of
Not the
situation?
standing on the
Or
back thing, because I've had a couple of bad experiences where
okay.
someone that was a bit heavy was like jumping.
Yeah.
More oil.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
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 But oil, but deep tissue, like deep. They got to know what they're doing though.
Sure.
Yeah.
I always fall asleep during massages, and I feel
Yeah.
like it's
So
a
do
little
I.
bit of a waste.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No. That's when it's working, because you
I
got to trust
guess.
that they know what they're doing. But if you're falling asleep and if it's deep, then it means they're doing it really well. That you're not
Yeah.
resisting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I like.
But they're not
Yeah.
just like paying to like fall asleep.
Yeah, yeah. But as long as you afterwards, if you feel like
Yes.
it was a good massage, then that's
Yeah. Yeah. Where do you go for a good massage?
actually I go to Shenzhen.
Okay.
So once a
That's
week I go to
yeah.
Shenzhen with
Mm,
my wife. Yeah, and it's
yeah.
just like 10 times cheaper than here. So that's
Yeah. Yeah. Go to app.
go to app, probably Audible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I do a
good.
lot of audiobooks
Mm,
during the drive, just in my commute, a lot of audiobooks.
yeah.
Yeah. And it tells me, like, usually I'm like, because usually, like, what's the next one? What should I go? You can go anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. Sometimes it like goes into self-help Buddhism. Sometimes
Mm,
it's like what's happening with the AI to catch up on what's going on, or
yeah.
science. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
really, you can really educate yourself and get a lot of good knowledge from good audiobooks.
Yeah. What is your go-to? This is the final one. Your go-to music playlist.
Right now,
Yeah.
it's like mellow, chill drive, like mellow. Like
Like
people are
adult
gonna make fun of
contemporary?
me, but like no, like a good Ed Sheeran song. I know people are
Okay.
gonna make fun of me, but
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
friends
Yeah.
are like Ed Sheeran. Yeah, like a good Ed Sheeran song. Jason Mraz, I
Oh,
really like good positive. He's just
yes.
spitting
Yeah.
out
Yeah. Yeah.
positivity.
Yeah.
Good mellow guitar. You know, when I was 14, it was gangster rap. Just then it became dance when I was clubbing.
Okay.
But now in my older age, or classical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. So what's next for you?
Next in life.
Mm.
Next in life is try to. I'm very blessed to be in a situation now with a very, very good team, and I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing without the team.
Mm.
Especially the core part. Actually, all of them, but there's a few that we've been together for like 12, 13 years. But if we can double the impact that we're having on the kids, on the youth in Hong Kong,
Yeah.
we have an online school that's like, touched thousands of lives since pre-COVID. If we can triple, quadruple, basically whatever we're doing, just magnify or exponential growth. and train a lot of teachers. We're getting a lot better, my team and I, in training teachers in
Okay.
what we do. Before we're like, no, it's going to take years, but now we're getting able to do it in a fast time, especially kids teachers. What are the
Yeah.
main things we want to teach kids on a fundamental level? So get better at that, and just basically the good that we're trying to do, the service that we're providing, allow it to reach more and more people.
Mm.
That and putting more care and attention into my family, myself and my family, my wife, my kids, not forgetting about, not getting lost in, okay, I'm just got to serve, I've got to train, I've got to da 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 da, and taking moments of self care.
Yeah.
Because then I'll burn out, and I've experienced burnout a few times in my life, so I've learned from that. So not to burn out, you
Yeah.
know. But next step is basically keep doing what I'm doing and meet more people like yourself, you know, get the stories out there, meet like-minded people, and just keep trying to do the best we can, being of service
Yeah.
to the world.
I think you're doing great.
Thank you.
You don't need my 2 cents, but where can people find you?
So we are on Instagram, Facebook. So if you Google Mindful Wing Chun, our online school is Mindful Wing Chun Online.
Yeah.
But if you go to Mindful Wing Chun, the website, you can see all of our social media stuff. My personal one is Nima King. So if you, Nima King _1 on Instagram, or just Nima King on Facebook, and YouTube. We're on there, Mindful Wing Chun as well.
You're everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah. You're everywhere.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed this conversation and connecting with you.
So did
and
I.
I'm really grateful that you shared all aspects. And I think that you are just a great person.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate
I feel
it.
really comfortable talking to you. And I really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with your audience.
Yeah. We'll see you again in a few months.
Sure. Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Cheers, brother.
Thank you for joining us on Move, Sweat, Discover. If you like this episode, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.